Good evening from Johannesburg. I'm Makhosini Nkosi. Welcome to Let's Have It Out. Tonight and every weeknight here on ENCA, a variety of newsmakers will get their chance to host this program. We'll give you, the viewer, a chance to get involved in the conversation. Unfiltered, accountable, and accessible. In South Africa, we have a news media that is fiercely independent. Politicians and government do not control the media, not directly at least. Our media enjoys freedom and space that others elsewhere in the world do not enjoy. Currently, there are 2 commissions of inquiry running in the country. The Zondo Commission into state capture and the Nugent Commission into tax administration and governance at SARS. Both commissions bring to the fore the important role played by the media. In the case of state capture, there is consensus that media, such as Amabungane, play a pivotal role in exposing corruption and the capture of government departments and state-owned companies. As regards SARS, the media, in particular the Sunday Times, faces serious accusations. Acclaimed investigative journalist Jacques Paul writes, and I quote, "The investigations unit at the Sunday Times played a crucial role in the destruction of the Hawks and SARS, and its members need to come forward and explain their roles in arguably the worst journalism that has ever been perpetrated in this country," close quote. I slightly disagree with Paul in one respect. To place all the blame on the Sunday Times investigations unit would be to scapegoat its members. One of the implicated writers, Stefan Hofstadter, recently said, and I quote, "It was a chaotic, upside-down time. We were under pressure for scoops. We should have stood back," end quote. Hofstadter's statement is quite telling. The dog wags the tail, and not the other way around. What were the roles of the editorial board and the publishers of the Sunday Times? During the era of Hofstadter and his colleagues, the newspaper solidified its dominance in the Sunday broadsheet space. Its investigative unit was scooping industry awards almost routinely. Other media houses often followed the Sunday Times scoops, repeated them as gospel. Has journalism, the news media, learned anything from this? And what do they plan to do differently going into the future? Are journalists equipped to withstand Stratcom tactics while dealing with anonymous sources? You can be a part of the conversation, and here's how.
Tweet us at ENCA using the hashtag LHIO. Call us on 011-759-6340 or send us a WhatsApp or WhatsApp video on 082-884-6370. And make sure those videos are no longer than 30 seconds, please.
To answer these questions and more, I'm joined in the studio by Sam Mkokeli, who is the Media Freedom Chairperson for the South African National Editors Forum. Thank you for joining us, Sam. It's always a pleasure talking to you. This must surely be an embarrassing situation for the media, to have a situation like this where some of your colleagues are accused of hollowing out state institutions like SARS and Hawks.
Look, these are very serious allegations. They are embarrassing, as you are saying, and as SANEF, we are concerned that this episode, if you can call it that, or the series of stories that were run by the Sunday Times were proven to have been false. And
but tell me, how do you not see this? You know, I worked in the Mail and Guardian for a short time, some 19 years ago. It was very difficult to put a story in the front page. Right. It's a very stressful time for me. Now, where you have in the Sunday Times journalists putting stories week in, week out in the front page of the newspaper, they are receiving awards and everything. I think there is more that needs to be done, more than just being concerned.
Wish you had let me finish it, explaining what we've seen. If you look at what happened, there's a timeline.
Yeah.
The stories were published and they were defended. The paper was criticized by some people, and eventually some things changed in the Sunday Times. A new editor came in. I don't know if the previous editor was fired for how the Sunday Times acted, and it was quite reckless. Then the new editor at the time, Bongani Sikoko, has been there for a while now. He made a bold apology for the stories that were carried by the newspaper, and it dismantled the investigative
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're still deferring to the newspaper. I want to hear what SANEF is planning to do. That's what I'm interested in. That's why I'm having you here.
SANEF works in the space of protecting the rights of the public to enjoy a free and independent media. We protect it, and we protect the newspapers themselves. We're not going to jump in on something that doesn't quite need us to do that. The Sunday Times has owned up and said, we made mistakes about this. We have learned from it. They learned from it. There's a new editor. He apologizes. They dismantled the investigative unit. If you look at the operation
but some of the people who are part of that investigating unit are still at Sunday Times. They're still writing stories.
Look, the Sunday Times should be made to account for such things. And sometimes newspapers do get made to account by readers voting with their money, by people who feel that they were badly treated by newspapers, going to the press ombuds, the very good courts in South Africa that are able to take serious decisions about newspapers. Newspapers get shunned, they get embarrassed, and people make such decisions. And these things have been said about the Sunday Times and about the individuals when involved in that particular story. But I want you to look at broadly, not just the Sunday Times issue, where we are in South Africa and the newspapers. We've got a very, very strong and independent newspaper and broadly media sector in South Africa. Zondo, you mentioned it in your intro. The Zondo story comes from the Financial Times. It is the Financial Times that broke the story that actually encouraged effectively Mkokeli Jonas to come out and make the alarming statement he did about what happened to him. If it weren't for that, things would have been different in South Africa. You mentioned Amapungane, the role they played in covering state capture.
Yes.
I need to take it back to the Sunday Times itself. It carried a number of stories that changed the debate in South Africa about state capture, the role of the Guptas, exposing things that probably wouldn't have been
But
exposed.
obviously we would focus on the stories that they wrote that are alleged to have eroded SARS and the Hawks. That's what I would be interested in. I'm not going to congratulate a fish for swimming. Where journalists do things that they're supposed to do, that's when we must hold it to account. That's what I'm interested in.
You are making a very, very clear case, and nobody's denying what you're saying.
Yeah. Can we trust the media to regulate itself? Can we, given what we're seeing now?
That's an old question. The question has been asked, investigated, and answered. Judge Ngwepe ran the process where the public of South Africa decided that what was required was co-regulation, that the media should not regulate itself. And the public of South Africa went further and said, we do not want the government to regulate the media. We do not want the private sector to regulate the media because we want it to be independent and strong. Therefore, the system we have right now is of independent co-regulation, where members of the public take part in the press council, in the appeals process. They sit there. Things have changed in South Africa. We no longer have the media regulating itself. Not that that was actually the case even before that. We had an independent and very strong and effective press ombuds system for print and the broadcasting complaints directorate for broadcasting. And these systems are very, very effective. We still have the courts that often decide on matters of defamation and where journalists make mistakes, if you can call it that.
We will take that discussion further. We will continue the conversation after the break. Remember to use the hashtag LHIO on social media.